Hello, malt mates. Welcome to the Bothy, the Whiskey Bothy. Welcome to review number 1113. Unlucky for some. So I'll start with the unlucky bit. I was unlucky enough to get a really nasty dose of a cold, of a virus that's been doing the rounds. Not just where I am, but probably where you are, because these things are all very kind of universal now. And I had to literally take to my bed for 5 days. So I have had to skip an entire week's worth of content because there is simply no point in trying to review a whiskey when I'm coughing, spluttering and sneezing and looking even worse than I usually do. However, the thing about being unwell is the road to recovery. So I'm going to review this for you, which is one of the OSWA winners from 2025, Edradour 10-year-old. 46%. And the company that make it won Best Independent Bottler yet again, and with good reason, because they are very clued up about their business, and it is Signatory's way of doing business is to supply natural whiskey at an accessible price and don't play too much of a marketing fanfare about it. So I will certainly toast to that. This is their official bottling. It's the Edradour from Edradour Distillery, so we're talking mid-Highlands, fairly central, and it's a complex, savoury and challenging single malt. It's absolutely not one that I would recommend you start with. Previous incantations of Edradour have been at 40% and then more recently at 43%. This is a first bottling at 46%, which ties in very neatly with the 200th anniversary of Edradour Distillery itself, which has recently gone through a substantial makeover, but not too much, and is looking very pretty in white and red, which is its kind of themed colours. I'm going to just comment on the back of the label here. Natural colour, unchill filtered. Enormously reassuring. It's delivering not just an integrity statement, it's giving us a very clear mission about where the whiskey is. And I have no doubt that this is going to increase people's interest in Edradour, which is often overlooked and marginalised because it's quite an eccentric, old-fashioned style of whiskey. There has been no attempt by the owners in any way to industrialise the process to make it sweeter, neater, tidier and convenient. And I'm very, very grateful to Edradour for that, because there's too many other brands out there who are going in the complete wrong direction, trying to hold on to people who thought they liked whiskey but they prefer vodka or no alcohol at all because they're all drinking green tea. Anyway, let's get stuck onto the nose here. I've poured a glass, I've given it a minute. I'd just like to point out, I don't know if you can see it, depends on the light here, but there's a very slight haze in the whiskey, and particularly when you hold it with a light behind it, you see it's almost opaque, as if someone had added a drop of milk to it. Just let me reassure you right now, that's exactly what you're looking for, because it is the tangible evidence that the whiskey has not in fact been chill filtered. Because unfortunately the big bottling plants, because they think they're looking after their bottling contracts by doing a good job, And they may not be chill filtering whiskey, but they're still over filtering it substantially and detexturizing and denaturing it. Not a problem with Edradour. What you get more of. It's more amplified, and this gives it more personality and signature. The nose is distinctly sherried. Softer sherry. You could call it a sherry monster, but there's a lot more going on because of the weight and the substance of the actual spirit signature, which is very bold and assertive. It's such an old-fashioned whiskey. It's a nostalgic whiskey. It's a whiskey which we believe that they made a lot of this in the old days, but it all disappeared into blends. And do you know, it's probably true. But nowadays, people are coming to whiskies like this because they're simply getting more experienced and diversifying the palate, building gradually and incrementally over the years from lighter, accessible whiskies to more complex flavour range whiskies, which is not just the flavour. And I'm picking out noses, for example, of fig and date are quite visible here in this, and quite a lot of raisin. These are the primary notes I'm picking up in the nose, although my nose is still far from perfect. But hey, the show goes on. And it's very engaging. It's kind of Victorian, industrial age, steam trains, old buses with real leather upholstery that you can really smell it. It's got that fusile note that you're in an old garage with the oil dumped and the oil sumps down around the premises, and it's a hot day, and you start to get these sort of organic, sort of oil mineral notes come out. You get that in Edradour distinctively. And it might not appeal to you initially, and for some people it will never appeal, but for others it's actually something substantially, tangibly delivered, and now that delivery is of far better quality. For those who know the Edradour secrets, there are two bottlings. One is the Caledonia 12-year-old. You can still get it. It's an absolute belter. And there's also the 15-year-old Fairy Flag, which is increasingly hard to find, but such an interesting story behind that bottling. The legacy of the Isle of Skye, I think it's the MacLeod clan, and their Fairy Flag, the Fay Flag. Maybe tell you the story someday about it. But I'm now at the stage I am going to, it's not lost on me the irony that I'm reviewing a whiskey after a cold that tastes slightly of cough mixture. You can't, it's just the way it goes. Resinous. Intensely resinous. Almost sharp. Very medicinal. One of the most medicinal Scotch single malt whiskies that you're going to be able to buy. Rosehip, raisin, prune, dark plum. Going to add some water here, the full 5 millilitres. And I'm looking at this magnificent visimetry. The visimetry, that is the swirling in the liquor when you add water. As the water doesn't mix with the whiskey, because the whiskey and its component flavours are denser than the water because of the greater solvency of the actual alcohol. And you get that swirling and rippling effect. Always a sign that a whiskey has not been semi-chill filtered. So when Edradour are saying they're unchill filtered, they really mean it. And we're going to need to see more of this from other producers. This is why I'm going to have a strong feature in 2026 on this channel here on independent bottlers. Because there's nothing pisses me off and nothing pissing you off more than when we're told, oh yeah, our latest bottling, it's not chill filtered, and yet it's still got that thinness to it because they're heavily chill filtering it. They're just kind of they're deciding what chill actually means. The Scotch whisky industry is playing a dangerous game if it continues to underestimate just how developed the sense and sensibility is of the modern whisky buyer. Fortunately, there are many distilleries not making that mistake, and that includes Edredour. They are connecting with us, they are relating to us, and they're providing a whisky, importantly, at an accessible price that doesn't have this BS premium simply because some marketing guru or superstar is trying to persuade us that, we're so much dumber than them. You know how condescending it gets. You buy whisky. Moving on. I've added the water. We're seeing a little bit of Scotch mist appear in that glass. Wonderfully reassuring. What can we expect from the addition of the water? By the way, I feel I'm kind of getting back into the swing of things now. It softens it. I'm fortunate I'm able to review this whisky because I've been tasting it gently on and off the last 4 weeks, so I'm already quite familiar with it. I opened this bottle just at the end of the year actually in 2025, just to get familiar with it, because it's the perfect dram for the time of year. Anyway, with water on the nose, softer, gingery, Muscovado brown sugar, a little bit rummy. You know, that kind of high ester Jamaican style rum that is really quite rummy without being over the top. Beautiful savoury notes. Linseed, old oil paint. You know, when I don't know if you've come across this, that you've been in an artist's gallery and the whole residual background smell is of layers and layers and layers and layers of paint. Oil paints built up over decades. It's a unique smell, and I just found when I was in that situation, I found myself just sitting quietly, contemplating not just the art, but the place of the art. Anyway, moving on. The medicinal note persists. Bitter licorice, anise, star anise, quite intense. There's a prominent dynamic sour note that reminds us that this is not a fashionable whisky. It's challenging, but also in turn, once your palate adjusts and adapts, it's rewarding in that respect. And there are very few whiskies in the modern Scotch whisky calendar that are like Edredour. It's remained stoically old-fashioned. It's rather like Longrow or Springbank, or independent bottlers of Mortlach. And if you can find independent bottlings of Old Pulteney, which is a classic whisky which has been rather sanitised in recent years to make it much more accessible and approachable and safe for the palate. Edredour, the timing is perfect to buck the trend of this increased mistaken identity within the Scotch whisky industry of needing to engineer things down to make it soft, light and fruity, or to impose these fruity casks, fruity wine, fruity this, fruity that finishes, which have been an enjoyable distraction for a while. But we do want to move on. This is one of the skills that a really good whisky maker understands. is that they're not catering for one market, they're catering for a dozen odd markets. And within that dozen markets, it's basically you've got someone with some experience, some with a significant experience, and who's very experienced, and someone who's really really up for the challenge of these obscure, difficult, challenging whiskies like this one, which there's no way you would have it as a session dram with your mates, because you cannot rush a bottle like this. This is exactly the sort of bottling that you're going to make last for months. You're going to watch it as it oxidizes, softens and ripens inside the bottle to become something even more fantastic than it is. And it's the more dynamic the whiskey when it's bottled, the more dynamism it has as it changes shape in that bottle over time under your custodianship. So don't forget that coming into play as well. I highly recommend this. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. And if you want to have a kind of permutation of the theme, you'll always find that the Edredur's bottled by Signatory Vintage Independent Bottling Company, who own Edredur Distillery, are just as dynamic, interesting and rewarding in their own way, and they give you the singularity of the single cask affecting the single malt, and that just makes the whole journey so much more exciting. Anyway, I'm going to take this glass and I'm going to get it right up me now, malt mates, because frankly I enjoy the experience of it. How about a malt, Mark? Oh, we're getting quite minty on me now. Wood mint and lozengey. Pickled fruit. Here we go. Here's a nice respectable mark. 84 out of 100. I hope you've enjoyed this review, malt mates. It's the first one I've done in round about 2 weeks, and my goodness, it really disrupted my pattern, because to miss out a review, it's the first time in almost 16 years, and it's felt very odd, but I had to remain in bed. I had to keep super warm, super hydrated, and in super recovery mode. Very important. More important these days than ever before, because the intensity of these viruses that we're getting are, as you've probably noticed, a little bit more intense. And there you have it. It's just what it is. Right, if you want to pop back again for review number 1113 extras, I shall talk about challenging our palate. How about that for a subject?